Hello and welcome. This is the Legal Leaders podcast by Wiseowl Legal. I'm Karen MacDonald, accountant and technologist, and I'm the founder of Wiseowl Legal. It's my passion to help improve law firms and add to their efficiency, both time-wise and financially. My guest today is Moshe Amsel from Profit with Law and Dream Builder Financial. Welcome to the show, Moshe.
Thank you so much for having me.
Moshe has his own podcast as well, and he helps law firm owners grow their practice, focus on creating generational wealth. He's married, is a loving husband and father of 7 children, ages ranging over 20 years. He's very familiar with struggles of running a successful business and still prioritizing his family. Moshe has 20 years experience in the IT industry as a business executive. He has extensive experience in sales and marketing, having closed over $30 million of sales in a single year. In addition to Profit with Law, Moshe also owns an accounting practice, Dream Builder Financial, where he helps clients with business, advisory, and tax strategy services. Welcome.
Thank you, Karen. It's a pleasure being here. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks for coming on our show, and tell me how you came to be in this great position.
Yes, it's interesting in your intro for yourself. You call yourself a technologist and an accountant, and those are exactly the two hats that I wear. As you know, a 20-year technology industry experience behind me, and as an accountant now, and really business advisor, business coach to law firms. But how in the world did I choose law firms? Did I just, throw a dart at a list of professions and it landed on law? It's a really good question. When I first started my accounting practice, I came into the industry in a different way than most accountants do. Which is having another career and then switching careers midstream. So I went to school as an adult learner and therefore was not exposed to the same opportunities that people who go as a regular college student to become an accountant, where you're exposed to college fairs, you're exposed to firms that are hiring from your specific school. And then my resume was a little daunting for people who are looking for new accountants because they want young blood, they want fresh blood, they don't want somebody who comes with all the baggage of experience. So I couldn't land a job as an accountant if I tried. Did try for a number of years. And so I started my firm with no accounting experience, just, hey, I've got the education, think I know how to do this, so let's just go. And started to build my client base. And I found that I was competing in a sea of everybody does the same thing. So what makes me different? And that's when I found Mike Michalowicz's book, Profit First. I read the book, and the book is as anti-accountant as it goes, because it takes your profit formula, your sales or revenue minus expenses equals profit, and turns it on its head and says revenue minus profit equals expenses, which is the premise of the book. So accountants have a hard time wrapping their head around it. But I loved the system, which is basically like grandma's envelope system for home budgeting, using separate bank accounts for your business budgeting. And I thought it was genius. And he had a certification program to make you a profit first professional and teach you how to help clients implement profit first in their business, which I then became, and I still am, a profit first professional. And through their headquarters, they got some inbound traffic of, people looking specifically for an accountant that was experienced with Profit First. And they sent me a lead, and it was a law firm in Manhattan. And I went in, I met with the owner, discussed how I can help her. And she liked me. She liked what I had to offer and became a client. And that was my first law firm client, which I soon came to realize that lawyers have a network. And when one person likes you, they recommend you to the next and the next and the next, kind of like you have Wiseowl Legal, you need law firms to love your software so that they tell their buddies about it, and everyone is starting to switch over. So before I knew it, I had 5 law firms as clients. 4 of the 5 had the same symptoms. Basically, they had a beautiful office, they had staff, they had cases coming in, they were busy. And yet behind the scenes, the owner was moving personal funds to cover payroll and cover rent. the three big checks that they wrote every month, two payroll cycles and one rent payment, they essentially didn't have the cash to cover that, and they had to move money in, move money out. You know, it was this big cash game that they were playing, but ultimately was indicative of a problem with the business and the way it operated. And I said to myself, if there's 4 of 5 businesses that have the same problem, then chances are there's a opportunity here. And that's when I stuck my stake in the ground and said, I'm going to be working with law firms. And the Profit with Law podcast was born. That started in March of 2019. In December of 2019, we held the first Law Firm Growth Summit, an online conference for law firm owners where we focus entirely on the business growth and not on the practice of law. Shortly after that, my various coaching programs, the incubator for really small firms, the elite for the firms that are trying to get from solo to larger, typically 6 to 7 figure transition, and then fractional CFO services where we serve law firms that are in the 2 to 10 million revenue range. But that's really how I ended up starting with law firms. I just accidentally stepped into it.
It's exciting. It's very rewarding to look back on how we've sort of been at the right place at the right time and remember that and mark that in time, because so often things like that happen to us and we let them flit by. And it's just really great to see that marker in time and acknowledge it and remember it. I'm in Australia and Moshe is in New York. Profit First is something that we're familiar with here, and it's alive and well in Australia. So there's plenty of Profit First professionals. So it's great to hear that it's a worldwide system, because it certainly, I've seen it help some people a lot too. So what's the biggest mistakes you've seen law firms make?
This is a really interesting one, because I think mistakes are different at various stages of growth. In the early stages, when somebody first opens their firm, there are 2 massive mistakes that firm owners make. Mistake number 1 is they get the role wrong, meaning they view themselves as the attorney in the firm. And the longer that they hold on to that notion, the longer it's going to take them to outgrow themselves. Now, some people only want a solo practice. They just want to be, fully booked, and that's all they do. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not really a business. That's essentially exchanging a paycheck from somebody who writes it for you to you writing yourself a paycheck. If you're growing a business, then you're essentially trying to use the power of many to create the financial security of one. And that's really what happens when you build a business. Now, the example I like to give all of my attorney clients to really try to hone this in is that, typically a non-attorney is not allowed to own a law firm. Well, in the state of Arizona in the United States, they have a sandbox project where basically they are allowing, with permission granted, they're allowing non-attorneys to become equity owners in a law firm. Now, if I, as a non-attorney, were to go to the state of Arizona and decide I'm going to open, I don't know, a DUI practice, a criminal practice that defends, people charged with driving while intoxicated, who would be the first person I hire when I open my doors? Be an attorney, right? I can't do anything without an attorney because I'm not an attorney. So I can't represent my clients. So I could be the best marketer. I can have the best pitch. I can do the best job of bringing a client in. But when they decide to sign with my firm, I couldn't serve them if I didn't have an attorney. And as a business owner, and when somebody is investing in a business and to grow a business, it's dangerous if you come in as the person who's able to do it, because you forget that the true growth is when you move that off of your plate, when someone else is doing it. And that's really the biggest mistake that I see made, and it keeps people stuck in a place where they can't grow beyond themselves for decades. I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm here for 5 years. They're waiting for that eventual possibility of when I'm ready to hire somebody because I've generated enough income to not only pay me, but to also pay someone else. And that'll never happen, or almost never happens, because you got to invest in the business and you got to bring that person on in order to create that next revenue cycle. So not realizing that you're a CEO and thinking you're an attorney is the biggest mistake that I see early stage law firm owners make. The second mistake that I see them make is basically focusing on the wrong things. When you're small, you're just starting out, you got to figure out how to get clients. You got to figure out how to serve clients. You don't need to be spending 3 months before you even launch to create systems and processes so that everything runs smoothly. You'll be able to figure that out as you go. So many people get lost in the nuances of, having all their ducks in a row and systemizing everything so that everything runs perfectly because they've read or they've heard that that's the way to have a successful business. But if you haven't figured out how to get clients, then you're wasting your time. You get that money coming in the door, learn how to serve them, on the fly, you're going to learn what needs to be done and what your systems need to look like. Systems you create before you start are going to end up getting recreated along the way, and they'll end up looking nothing like what they looked like initially. Now, there's two other stages of growth and different mistakes that I see. So once you go beyond yourself and you start hiring staff, so you hire an associate or you hire support staff, the mistake in that stage is not stepping into the role of a leader. And what happens is the owner is holding on to too many things. And that's really embedded in just a lack of trust in the team. And trust gets built by handing something off and then seeing them do it well. And if they do it wrong, you as a leader, you need to coach them and then have them try again. And at that stage, the mistake that we make is we take it back. So I hand off something to somebody. I say, here, you go do this. They do it. I don't like the way they did it. They did it wrong. Instead of coaching them, I say, oh, they can't do it. I'm going to take it back. I'm going to own it. I'm going to do it myself. And what ends up happening is that you have a team of people, but they're actually not able to produce results for you because you keep owning everything. So you're the bottleneck. Nothing can succeed without you. And until you understand and figure that out and step into the role of being a leader, which is to be a teacher, to mentor your staff, and to give them the space to make mistakes and to rise up and to become the best version of themselves, that's gonna hold you back at that stage. But as soon as you figure that out, it's like a rocket launching, because then it's just how many people can you hire and how quick can you hire them? Because that's really the golden ticket is getting the right people to own their responsibility and to execute. And then in the third stage of growth with the firms that I work with, and that's as far as I'm going to go because my experience doesn't go beyond that, are the firms in that 2 to 10 million range. And the mistake here is not realizing, and this is really, I mean, most firm owners are going to find this out or figure this out eventually, but it's not realizing that what got you here won't get you there. And at this stage of business, it's time for an evolution. It's time for a maturation of the business where it's no longer the vision of the business owner is driving all of the activities of the team. We're taking the vision and we're now translating that into key performance indicators, translating that into metrics and goals that each department is responsible for. And if you don't define that and you don't have a system of tracking it, you don't have a system of communicating that with your team, what ends up happening is that you have a bunch of great players, but none of them are pulling in the same direction. And that creates a situation where the business looks successful, everybody's working, everybody's producing, there's a lot of production happening. Yet when we look at the end of the year and we say, okay, I did 5 million in revenue, the owner only has 300,000 in profit. Or I did 10 million in revenue and the owner has only 500,000 in profit. A healthy business should be earning somewhere between 30 and 40, 50% profit. A lot of that goes to taxes, so it's not all going to be what you take home. But give me a $10 million law firm. There should be a $3 million profit minimum in there. And I mean, if we took a poll of all the $10 million law firms out there, I'd be willing to bet that 70% or greater are earning less than 3 million in profit. And it's because we're not paying attention to the numbers enough. Because if we were, we'd be able to be much quicker to react to something that's not working. And that's where the money gets lost. The money gets lost when I've left a marketing campaign on for too long because I wasn't paying attention. The money gets lost when I left a non-producer in a production seat for too long because I wasn't paying attention. The money gets lost when I have a sales team that could be closing at 40% and they're closing at 15, but I'm not paying attention. So when you start to pay attention to the numbers and you start to elevate your staff by them knowing the numbers and knowing what they're responsible for, and guess what? Incentivizing them financially to meet those metrics, that's when your team all starts to pull in the same direction. That's when you start to really unlock the true profit potential of your firm. And how sad would it be if you did all the work and you did everything, you put your blood, sweat, and tears in to build a $10 million firm, and all you have to show for it is a $3, $5, $700,000 income when it could have been $3 million? How much would that change your life? And how much could you have done with that money if you earned it year over year over year? What would be the power if you lived one way for 5 years versus the other way for 5 years? And that's really the true power and potential of what I do with my clients in unlocking that. It's completely life-changing for them.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, there's some great nuggets in there. So let's continue on the thread. What defines a great leader?
So we kind of alluded to some of that
Yeah.
in my other response, but to me, a great leader is somebody who recognizes that the people on their team each have their own journey of growth, and that journey of growth may not necessarily keep them on the team. You need to be willing to mentor somebody even to the point where they leave, because their real endpoint is not to be somebody who's, elevated themselves on your team. And that's a really hard thing to wrap our heads around. But until you're willing to give somebody without holding back at all,
Mm.
you cannot expect them to give you without holding back at all. And that's really the way I view a leader, is somebody who's willing to mentor their staff, even to the detriment of their own success. And it doesn't have to be that way. It will be for some people. I mean, when you have an A player on your team, that A player may decide to go out on their own. They may decide to go to another firm or another industry because they've outgrown what you've given them, even though they have a ton of gratitude for what you've provided for them. So a leader's role is to not only lead by example, but to provide the sandbox and the learning environment to allow their staff to really develop into the best version of themselves.
You sound like a great person to be working with.
I hope so.
It's just, there's so much reward, personal reward, when you see someone grow and you know that you've contributed to that. It's one of the best things in business is just seeing people grow. I find it very exciting.
It is very true. And I'll add one thing, and that is that any leader will tell you that even though somebody was perfect at the time that they hired them, there may become a time that you've outgrown them, right? They're not growing fast enough for you. They're not stepping into the roles that you need. And it's okay as a leader to recognize that and to part ways with that person. So many people are afraid to let somebody go because they think that they're doing them a favor by keeping them, right? They like, how could I let this person go? They've been with me from day one, or they've been with me for 5 years. I feel awful. They have a family to support, and I'm going to be putting them out on the street. And when you approach it from that perspective and you believe that you're the only person that they can rely on for income and that you're the golden ticket for them, it's a very dangerous place to play, because the reality is that when they're not performing for you and you keep them, you're holding them back from being the best version of themselves. And remember, I said that a great leader is one who allows somebody to be able to become the best version of themselves. And that also includes letting them go because they cannot do that where they are in your firm. And that's really it's a really difficult concept to own. I think everyone understands it, but to actually live it, breathe it is very difficult, because we're all humans and we have emotions and we have attachments, and we create these attachments and then we hold on to them. And if you ask any successful business person at any stage of significant growth to share with you some lessons, one of the things that they're going to tell you is hire slow, fire fast. And it's age-old adage, but it stands true. And the reason for that is because we tend to do the opposite. We tend to hire when we desperately need it, and therefore we're in a rush and we don't take the time to hire the right person. And then we tend to hold on to them for too long and not let them go, which if we then turn that into numbers, that can be the reason that we aren't growing as fast as we could, why we're not as profitable as we could be, because we failed as a leader to recognize that a true leader is one that creates opportunities, even if it means letting somebody go to create the next opportunity for them.
Wow. What thought would you like to leave with listeners today?
Okay. This is a good one. So if I had to just leave one piece of advice
Yes.
for people to take, and I don't know the size of your business, I don't know your journey, I don't know where you've come from or where you've been, it'll be this. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And I know that this is, biblical in a sense, right? But the reality is that that has never failed me, has never failed any of my clients. It works in sales and marketing. It works in leadership and team development. It works in generating profitability. At the end of the day, if you don't take advantage of people and you provide people the way that you want to be provided for, you serve people the way you want to be served, there's no failing in that formula. And it's where we go astray from that, where we fail to think about others is where we make mistakes. Even I'll give you an example. Even in marketing, right? Like the key to marketing is to get into the conversation that your clients are already having in their head. So if we lose sight of that and we don't think about where they are, what their challenges are, and speak to them there, then our marketing is going to be off point. So even the marketing, which seems like, okay, that doesn't require, this type of relationship. It actually does. And it's what allows marketing to succeed is when you put yourself in your client's shoes and then you talk to them at that place and you invite them in to work with you because you have the solution for them. That's when they want to work with you. And then at every step of the way, how would I want to be treated if I had this challenge and I walked into a law firm? Would I want to be put on hold on the phone for 20 minutes? Would I want to be sitting in a waiting room with four other people? Would I want to be greeted with a smile, be brought into a conference room, be offered a cup of coffee? Those are the kinds of things that we don't talk about. But at the end of the day, if you at every step of the way treat somebody the way you would like to be treated in that specific situation, that is going to skyrocket your growth.
Thank you so much. Man of wisdom. Just to wrap up, tell me what you do for fun.
So this is an interesting one because what I do for fun is actually work for some. When I was 18, I became a volunteer at the local ambulance squad, and became an emergency medical technician. And it's something that I love to do. And it's another way that, I mean, I'm a very heart-centered person, and it's just another way that I can come to people in their time of need and help them. When I went through my divorce in 2006, I decided to go through and become a paramedic. A paramedic, it's different in different parts of the world, but essentially the paramedic is an extension of the doctor in the emergency room. So they're able to do a lot more in the field. We carry a whole bunch of medications that we can administer. We can start IVs, all of that. So for fun, for me, I work another job as a paramedic here in the community. And I do it whenever I can, and it really fulfills me and lights me up. Also gives me a break from my beautiful family, which is, it's good to get a few minutes away every once in a while, and it allows me to do that too.
And is there anything any more quirky about you that the listeners might like to know?
So this is one of those things where, like, tell me something that's really interesting that nobody knows. I am married to my second wife, but I have had 3 weddings. So, and not in the way that you're thinking that, like, oh, I divorced and got married again. I was raised religious, Orthodox, Jewish Orthodox, and in the Jewish Orthodox world, the wedding, first of all, the way women dress is they cover their their themselves up to the collarbone, so they wear very high dress and shirt when they're wearing it. They do nothing, no halter tops or anything like that. Cover their arms past their elbows, and then they don't dance, men and women together. The dancing at a wedding is separate. The men on one side, women on the other side. So I was raised that way. And when I went through my divorce and started reevaluating my whole life, I decided I was going to live differently. And I met a woman who was Reform Jewish, and Reform Jewish is still Jewish, but they don't observe all of those stringent rules. So my wife, she had this, Cinderella wedding vision that she always wanted, and with a, halter top wedding dress and the dancing the way that traditional, you would think of traditional weddings are operated with. And we went to my parents and said, we want to respect the family and the way that everyone observes their religion, but at the same time, we want to give her the wedding that she wants. So what if we do the first half one way and the second half the other way? And my parents said, well, what if we just made two weddings? We'll pay for the religious one, and then you guys can, do what you want in the second one. And that's what we did. We got married twice, once on a Thursday and once on a Sunday. It was a very long, big party weekend, but literally two separate wedding dresses, two wedding parties, the works. So two completely separate weddings.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great. And what's the best app on your phone that the listeners would love to hear about?
Oh, best app on my phone. Well, I'm an accountant, so I have to go with Mile IQ. Mile IQ logs every single time that I drive somewhere. And for keeping track of business mileage, and also my paramedic job for keeping track of the times of when we arrived on scene and left the scene and all of that. But Mile IQ is a godsend when it comes to that. I'm sure that there's a gazillion other apps that are really useful on my phone, but that's one that a lot of people don't know about, and it's for any business owner, who's got a vehicle that they're expensing. It's a lifesaver to have that mileage log built in and not needing to sit there and write it down.
I'll have a look at that one. I hope it works in kilometers.
I imagine it probably does.
Yes,
I don't know. It's called Mile IQ, so who knows?
that's all right. I'll have a look. And would you like to make an offer to our listeners today?
The best thing is, hey, tune into the Profit with Law podcast. You're listening to a podcast here. Would love to have you come over and check our show out. And we have a YouTube channel with the same name. But one thing that's really cool that we assembled is we created a quiz that asks you, it's just 7 questions. And from those 7 questions, I can determine what stage of growth you're at in your law firm and what your biggest challenge is right now. So if that's something that intrigues you, is something that interests you to take, you can go to profitwithlaw.com/assessment, and it'll take you right to that assessment, and you can answer the 7 questions. At the end, it'll give you an opportunity to give us your email address if you so choose, so that we can email you the results, and that will also put you on our marketing list. But you don't have to. You can get the results right there. And for each result, I have a video explaining, where you're at, where you want to go, what the next step is, and what your biggest challenges are at that stage that need to be overcome. So if you're sitting there trying to figure out, like, what is the next thing I should be working on, this could be really, really helpful for you.
Wow, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Moshe. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today, and we'd love to see you on the next podcast. And thank you, and have a great day. I'm
Thank
Karen
you, Karen.
MacDonald. Thank you to Moshe Amsel for joining me today.